Welcome to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, and educator with over 20 years of experience in the areas of elementary and special education. It's my mission to help you create lifelong learners and embrace a holistic approach to education at home. I'll be sharing practical strategies, inspiration, and resources to support your family. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a business owner, or balancing work and homeschool, you're in the right place to connect with a community that values education just as much as you do. Join us each week as we ditch the stress, embrace the joy of learning, and set your family up for a lifetime of success. Hey friend, welcome back to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, your home education expert. Over the past few weeks, we've been chatting about ways to start your school year off right. Questions and doubts you may have as a homeschool mom, or how to plan without the overwhelm, whatever your situation may be. Staying home with the kids, working, running a business. Well, this week, I am so excited to share with you a special guest, Genesis Hey Krick, mom of four, bestselling author, podcast host, and founder of Dream, Ignite, Build, and a high-performance strategist. We're going to dive into ways that you can be intentional with your time, ways that you can plan, and things that you can do that best fit your family's needs. Well, welcome, Genesis. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here with you, Christine. I'm really looking forward to diving into this with you today.
Yes. Well, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? You and I go back quite a couple years now. And I have we've done masterminds together. I've been in your mastermind. We've done some talk shows together. That was a fun season. And you have a podcast, you have a YouTube channel. You have so many wonderful resources out there for moms in general. I mean, you're a mom of four, you're busy. You always have such wonderful goals and you're always doing amazing things. And I love watching all that you do. So if you just want to share a little bit about some of the things that you do with our guests, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And I believe that you and I have, from the get-go, we have always had so much synergy because we want to truly empower families to thrive. You know, as a mom of four and you're, doing the homeschooling thing, mom of two, we both understand how challenging it can be to try to navigate all of the things. And so my passion really comes from, doing this myself and life experiences and really truly wanting to help families to understand that it's possible to be able to do all of the things. It's possible to be able to have an amazing quality life and really truly thrive daily. We don't have to wait for some miraculous thing to happen for us to be in that mindset, for us to be engaged with our kids. It's simply making some different decisions. And so I've dedicated a lot of my life into giving back, into serving, into helping, into leading moms and families to really truly find that space where they can feel like they, like I said, are thriving and to really be in their element, be true to who they are and show up to be the best versions of themselves so that they can pour into their kids, they can pour into their spouse, they can really make a difference in their community and whatever that looks like. And I know that we're speaking to an audience of multifaceted women. And so it could be working women, it could be stay-at-home moms, and we're all, our lives look a little bit different. And that's the beautiful thing about life is that we are all coming from different types of experiences. So I love that you're doing this with your podcast, Christine. I love that you are bringing so much to the table in terms of strategies and ideas and tools and just allowing these families to know what's possible. And allowing them to know that there's so much potential. We don't have to feel like we're struggling constantly just to get through. And so that's part of, for me as a coach, and part of the things that I focus on with my clients is to remove that overwhelm, that stress, that anxiety, that those feelings that we have to show up and we have to create, we have to check off every single thing off of every to-do list every day. And so my idea from a standpoint of like how I coach is simplifying all things. And so I definitely want to lean into that today too, and talk about how we can simplify all aspects, whether it's those systems and strategies or even from a mindset perspective shift. So I'm looking forward to this. My goal is to continue to build Dream Ignite Build, where we serve so many women, so many entrepreneurs, so many women that are doing it all and navigating uncharted waters and figuring it out day to day. And it's such an honor to be here with you talking about that and how we can truly serve and give back together, because as I prefaced, we are of the same mindset and we truly are passionate about making a difference in this world, and we can do it one family at a time.
Yes, absolutely. And, you really spoke a lot to just knowing that, yes, we can enjoy our life. We have the to-do lists are endless. There's always something that needs to be done, something that's coming up. But what do we need to be focusing our time on? And I have a very quick example. Like yesterday, the kids, Ella brought out her baby dolls, and she's at that 10-year-old age, so that kind of stuff is not happening as often. Yeah. And I walk in her room and she had all of this stuff out. And I said, you know what? The things can wait. Right now, I'm going to come play with you. And I played before dinner. I got dinner ready. We ate. Ella and Alex played for hours last night. And, it was just so amazing to be able to say, I can take that intentional time with them and stop. And you know what? I'll do it tomorrow, like what is important. And that's just one example of, me taking a moment of being intentional with the kids, but we also have to be intentional with our work, and I had to do that. Say, okay, we went to the pool this morning. Now I have to be very intentional with the work that I have to get done this afternoon. And we have to, I think, express that to our families too, making sure that they know what are the expectations for the day. So I would just love to know kind of what does that look like? Making that time blocking, that intentional time. What are some things that would be helpful for families that are doing a lot, right? Running a business, working from home, homeschooling, being a stay-at-home mom, no matter what we do, they're all full-time jobs, and
100%.
how are we doing it all?
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on what you said about that intentional time with your daughter, because those are fleeting. As they get older, it's less and less and fewer and far between. So I don't take that lightly, those kinds of moments. And I would say specifically for the summertime, it's, in my opinion, it's meant to really absorb those moments. And yesterday I was pushing my girls on the swings and just, focusing on being in that space, listening to them laugh and giggle and, thinking about, it's not always going to be like this. So taking advantage.
Don't make me cry, because that gets me very emotional. Like, that's one of the things. It's like, you never know when it's the last, right? There's all those things out there. You never know when it's the last. And I know for Ella, it's been like, I'm ready to get rid of my Barbie dream house. And I was like, what? Leaving the princess stage, that was hard. The pink stage, that was real hard for me. You guys know I'm a pink girl, So when she's like, Mom, I need to paint my room. And I'm like, oh, no princesses, no pink, no Barbies, So yes, those moments I'm like, you know what? We're soaking every single one of them up, because you don't know when it's the last time that they're going to be like, nah. And I even said to her, I was like, we're playing Barbies one more time before you get rid of that Barbie dream house.
Oh, and it's the same thing with the clothes too. I don't know if you experienced this, but
yes.
I've got 4. So there's been some shirts and some little outfits that are unisex that all 4 of them were able to go through. Oh. And then now that my youngest is almost 6, I'm looking at these little shirts thinking to myself, like, nobody's going to wear this again.
Mhm.
So
Oh.
it's hard to let go of that. So it's very, at times traumatic. I definitely am one to, have a hard time releasing that and letting go.
Mhm.
But I try to remind myself of all the exciting things that we have to come, and then just focusing on every single age has its significant pieces and um, ability for us to be able to embrace that, because there's so much there for us to
Mhm.
experience that we don't want to miss that either. You don't want to be
Right.
stuck in the past because you can't let go. So you want to be thinking
Mhm.
about everything that you have right now in the season, and then embracing what's to come next.
Yes.
So, but I know you had the question about time blocking, and I work with a lot of young families. So families with kids that are ages 4 and under, at all ages, but I'm speaking specifically to those ages because that can be incredibly difficult, especially when you don't have potentially a nanny or a support system at home. We don't all have that, right?
Mhm.
So I like to look at flexible time blocking. And what I mean by that is, whenever I'm scheduling myself for a priority, I have 3 priorities that I set to accomplish, AKA non negotiables, on a daily basis. And I ask myself, what are 2 time slots that I could put this specific action piece into place? So it might be one time in the morning, one time in the afternoon. And by me doing that, it allows for that flexibility. Should something come up, should we have one of those moments where we decide, you know what, this is more important right now
Mhm.
for me to be here and experience this present state, versus doing this other thing that can wait a couple hours. So I
Mhm.
think it's important to look at how flexible we can be with our priorities, and if we give ourselves options, we take a lot of the pressure off. And
Yes.
so I know that this isn't always ideal or always possible, but for a lot of things it is, because we might just have a deadline of it being done tomorrow. So as long as we can do it today and we can insert it in that
Mhm.
specific slot, then it can be accomplished. So I think the idea is to look at, in an ideal world, if we were to put this down on paper, if we could assess how long that this would take. Is it like a 30-minute? Is it a 60-minute? You can still be more specific about that and
Mhm.
saying, I think this is probably going to take me around 60 minutes. So if I were to look at 9 a.m. and then 2 p.m. in order to get this, and then it can be interchangeable also with something else. So
Mm.
I think that, giving yourself that flexibility, especially when it comes to doing things on the home front with homeschooling, the accessibility to have that movability is going to really make a big difference. So I know that, like, for naps, for example, or children that are in need of attention in specific moments throughout the day, this can come in handy. So you could potentially move that to the nap time.
Mhm.
So if there's like a typical time that your child is taking a nap, look at, is it possible to complete that task during that time?
I love
So
that.
sometimes we have to be creative, right? We
Yes.
have to look at uh, the amount of time that we are spending trying to be super rigid, because rigidity for most of us doesn't serve us well.
Yes. True.
So,
And I
so
talk about this a lot, where we need to have a plan, but we need to be flexible because life happens, things come up. So, yes, I totally am totally in alignment there for sure.
And then the second piece is that we don't necessarily have to have things blocked out in big increments of time. Like, I love working with my clients on this. For example, if they're writing a book or doing like a big house project, something, that they're trying to do, but it just doesn't seem like they're going anywhere. We can break this down into 10 to 15-minute increments. It doesn't have
Mhm.
to be 30, 60, 90. A lot of the time when we feel like we're creating this time blocking schedule, it has to be at bare minimum like 30 minutes. And that's not true, because as long as we are moving the needle forward in some capacity, we are making progress. So I think it's important for us to assess, when is the end date? When is the ideal end date to complete this project? And then assess how much you can do each day with that. And even if you are doing 10-minute increments, again, it's still making progress. So depending on what the project is, we're not always required to have a more amount of time blocked out. So think about other things that could be put into those time slots that can be accomplished during that time. And it might be just like, some household management things, like, doing the laundry or finishing up the dishes. I love, talking to my clients about ways that they can be creative with their time, so that, again, it takes the pressure off. They're still taking action. They're still getting things done, but it might not be in a massive way every day. And it doesn't mean that that's how it has to be every day. The time blocking can shift. It can be 10 minutes on Monday and 60 minutes on Tuesday. Whatever they are able to, based on their bandwidth, based on their children's schedule, based on their priorities. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I know you and I were talking about this before we hopped on the call, is that preparation is key.
Yes.
So whatever we are preparing for, we just want to know what we're setting out to accomplish. And if you have the clarity and you're saying, okay, I need to complete X, Y, and Z by Friday, it's almost kind of like a puzzle. And we can put it together however we want, however it makes sense to us, based on our energy, based on our resources, based on our capacity. It doesn't have to be a one size fits all.
Yes.
And that's what I'm learning more and more all the time as my kids are going through different seasons. I've got ages 5 to almost 13 now.
Wow.
So things do continue to shift, And one thing that I heard that I think you will appreciate, Christine, I recently heard this on a podcast, was the person said, choose one thing that you want to be horrible at for a period of time. And I loved that, because you gave yourself permission to step back from something for a little bit. And the person was specifically referring to a household item, like, getting specific work items done around the house. And it was for a season. It was for a period of time, because they were working, they were taking care of their kids, they were doing all of the outside activities outside of the house with the kids. And so that was okay for them. They gave themselves permission to not do a great job at doing the dishes. Like, they were in the sink every single night because they didn't do them throughout the entire day. And they had to get a little bit of extra help. And that's okay. I'm sure you've talked about this before, like getting help, getting assistance, asking for support, whether it's from the kids or from your husband. We can get things done outside of just our personal ability and our personal bandwidth.
Yes, absolutely.
But I thought that was really freeing, like to just say, like, it's okay if I'm not great at this right now. I don't have to be super mom at every single thing that I do.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. Where I remember, actually, when I had my kids, I remember someone saying to me, something is going to drop, right? Like, you want everything to be perfect and you want everything to be, the way that you think it's going to be, but something is probably going to not be that way. And for me, honestly, it was my car, because I was like washing my car, vacuuming it out, and it was like, I don't have time for that anymore. And I'm okay with that piece of that looking that way for right now, and now we're back in a season where it's like, I have a little more capacity to take care of things like that, but I love that, where, yes, you know what? It's okay if those dishes sit in the sink throughout the day, and in the morning or in the evening. There's been some nights that I'm like, I'm just done for the night.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'll wash those dishes tomorrow, you know? So yes, that's totally, it's like giving that permission to say, you know what? It's okay. It's not all going to look perfect. It's not going to look Instagram perfect. It's not going to be Pinterest perfect, And I think that as where we're at in our age, right? In our day and age is like, that's what we're comparing to. I mean, how
Yeah.
often are we scrolling and saying, well, they're doing it all. They've got all this stuff that they're working on and they're doing. That's not reality though. And I have seen more and more moms, which I love, more reality of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it is the daily grunt work that we're doing, and we're posting the polished.
Yeah.
So yes, like just giving that permission to say, you know what, it's okay, you know, and
Yeah.
it is all going to get done. What are your priorities? I love that. I love also how you were speaking about the time blocking, where, you've talked about the needle moving multiple times in things that I've done with you. And even just in that moment, it was like, yes, are you moving the needle forward on your tasks, right? Whatever task that may be. And I remember on our way down to your conference, your event, I had a friend with me and we came down to Sarasota. And as we were driving and I was answering phone calls, she was sitting in the passenger seat reading a book. And she may get through a page, a paragraph, whatever it was, right? And then we got to your conference and you were like, what are we doing to move the needle forward? And she was like, oh my goodness, I did that. In those small amounts of time that I had available, I was able to read. And by the time we got there, I may have read a whole chapter. Where if I thought I'm going to sit here and read a chapter, I don't get it done.
Yeah.
And I know I've done that where it's like, all right, I'm blocking myself off this whole day. I have nothing planned and I'm going to get all of these things done. And they don't always get done.
Yeah.
But if you're taking those small chunks of time, whatever the task is, that is really going to help move things forward. So I love that. I thought that was very, very helpful. And I think that would be very helpful to a lot of moms out there. It doesn't have to be a laundry day. It can be one load of laundry throughout the day.
Exactly. And I love that you said that about the reading, because that is something that fills me up so much. I love to read. And that is, it's easy to get away from us, because we always can put something else in front of that as, well, this is more important than sitting down and relaxing and reading. But if you set yourself up for success and just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to read a paragraph. I'm going to read one page. That is so doable. It doesn't have to be a full chapter. It doesn't have to be an entire book by the end of the week or the end of the month. Like, if you have a goal in mind, we don't have to overextend ourselves to the point where we're setting up unrealistic timelines. And I think that that's the key, is if you have something that's realistic that you can commit to, which is that paragraph or that full page, I think that just helps build our confidence, because when we accomplish it, then we're like, yes, I did that. But if we're saying I have to read a chapter every single day, then that's going to be a little bit more hard to do that.
Yes.
So I think with anything, whether it's creating quality moments with our kids or reading the book, writing a book, taking the time and space to work on your business, look at how you can set yourself up for success so that it's manageable. Don't set up these, as you were talking about previously, these unrealistic expectations that are just constantly making you struggle to accomplish it. Because again, what does that do? It takes us right back to that overwhelming point where we're just, we don't feel like we're getting anywhere. Even if we are, it's like, well, we didn't reach the goal though. So the goals perhaps need to shift.
Right. And we beat ourselves up if we don't make it to that point, I didn't accomplish anything today. But reality, we probably did accomplish something, but you probably set an unrealistic, I know for me, I'm speaking for myself here. I've set unrealistic expectations of, oh my gosh, I didn't get all of this done today. And it's like, but look what you did do. You did do a whole lot of things. And maybe that just wasn't realistic, So yeah, I totally agree. And I agree that also is with our, families that are homeschooling, right? And those expectations of, for us, we can set up a block of time or a couple hours or even like, I was playing a game with the kids and it can be 15,
Mhm.
20 minutes, 30 minutes. And it's like,
Yes.
all right, now I'm going to get back to a work task,
Yes.
So that's going to be, it's the ebb and flow. I think that's what I'm trying to say here is like, it really can be our ebb and flow of life
Mhm.
instead of making it so structured and rigid. I think there's so many
Absolutely.
people out there saying, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. And it's like, but what's working for you? What's working for your
Exactly.
family? And I think that's where we
100%.
really need to lean into.
100%. And I do also believe that having a visual for everyone is
Yes.
amazing because,
Mhm.
like, we have this, and you probably have heard of it, the big ass calendar where you see the entire year and you see everything that's to come. We can highlight big events, vacations, holidays, and things that we all have to look forward to.
Mhm.
So there's always an anticipation of what's to come as a family. They can go back and they can look at that calendar. And that's something that my husband and I have been doing for a couple years is every January we sit down and we plan the year as much as we can. And obviously there's things come up, there's things that
Mhm.
shift, but it's a dry erase. So we can, make shifts where necessary. And at least it's preparing us from a mental standpoint because we have that visual for what's to come. And I
Yes.
do again feel like that takes some of the pressure off of like leaning way into the future and
Mhm.
trying to figure out like what's going to work for us. And that's something I really wanted to highlight in this conversation today as we are moving from summer to fall.
Yes.
It is going to require a big mindset shift. And if we know what's to come, we know what to expect, then we're going to flow so much easier into that.
Mhm.
And so my question to anyone listening today is that how do you want to feel as you're moving into this next season? What are the emotions that you want to describe yourself experiencing? And what kinds of experiences do you want to have with your children, with your family? And describe that in detail. What does that look like? Because
Mhm.
I truly believe that anything can be created. When we start using our imagination, anything is possible. We just, again, going back to the clarity, we need to really understand what it is that we truly want, we truly need. And as you said, Christine, we're all a little bit different. So when you're looking at what somebody else is doing on Instagram, or perhaps what another family is doing down the street, it may be totally different than what
Right.
works for your family. So
Yes.
I would encourage you to sit down and before school starts, whether you're, staying at home with the kiddos or the kids are actually going back to school, um, I would encourage you to sit down with your family and ask, what do we want this to look like as a
Mhm.
whole? And if you have kids that are a little bit older, I have, like I said, almost a teenager. I think it's important that they provide some value in that conversation too and
Mhm.
lead it and talk about the things that are important to them. They may be able to contribute. You may be able to bring them on board to help support you in this next season. And they don't even necessarily have to be that old, but whatever your kids' ages are, I think that we can have open dialogue and share the importance of doing this thing together. No, we're
Yes.
we're working as a unit. This
Yes.
is for all of us, not just for mom.
Mhm.
We're doing this thing together.
Absolutely. 100% agree. I'm a huge advocate in having my kids join in the tasks. We're getting ready for a big trip tomorrow and they're down there preparing, they're packing their bags. We have, just like you're talking about, a big calendar. I have a big dry erase board and all the things that are going on in my mind have to go on that board because everyone needs to see what are the things that need to be done. What is something that mom has to do and what's something that someone else can do to take the weight off of me?
Yes.
So that I think that's so, so valuable. And I think, just asking those questions that you asked, take some time and journal those things out. Prepare
Yeah,
for this next season. And what does that look like for you?
exactly.
Do you want to speak a little bit? You have a little bit of homeschool experience where you did a hybrid last year, right, with your kiddos.
Yep.
So how did you navigate that where you were able to work, have the kids home, even if it was just one day a week, but that changes the flow of the schedule a little bit.
It does. Yes. And so Fridays were such a blessing for us. I had been thinking about the idea of homeschooling. I talked about it with my husband, and we decided it wasn't going to be for us to do full on homeschooling, but we came across this option where we could do hybrid. And it, like you said, it was Fridays only. And so we're like, this is the perfect way to just test this out and see how we feel in this experience. And it really gave way to some really great present moments where I was able to sit with the kids and read with them and go through the logistics of sitting down and doing the work. But that at the same time was a big shift for me because Monday through Thursday, I was working from home and also out in the community. And of course it was quiet and my kids were not there. So as a mom and trying to do like both ends of the spectrum, it was definitely a shift for me and recognizing that the flow of the day is just going to be entirely different. Mm-hmm. And so I realized that through just experiencing home and school, that there's such a big difference in the way that my energy is, in the way that I work, and the way that I am operating with them. Because we have to put on, a different hat when we're doing the teaching, when we're sitting down and doing the work. So that was a big realization on my part, is that I can't just be mom in this aspect. I have to be able to step back and say, you know what, guys, we got to take this seriously. We're sitting down and we got to put in the time to do the work so that we can get everything that we are setting out to do accomplished. Mm-hmm. And so wearing multiple hats was definitely a big shift for me. But I loved the experience of it. We decided that we were going to send everyone back full time without the hybrid option this next year. And we wanted to see what that difference would be like in them, and also things on the home front. What I realized is that it's also not for everyone, whether it's, full on homeschool or even hybrid. I think all kids are entirely different in the way that they learn. And I know a lot of families that do a mix of both, where sometimes they have kids that are full in and going to school, and then the others are partial and or staying at home. So they have like kind of a mix depending on how many kids they have. So I just love the idea that there are options, that we do have options out there depending on what works for us. And I just wanted to, share with whoever's listening today that it's okay to do what works for your family. And we're all in different places when it comes to working, to staying at home. There's so many different ways that we can make it work. And no matter what you choose, you can make it work. And you can try it out, and it doesn't have to be forever. Yes. If you're realizing that it's not a good fit, and whatever that choice is, you can always make that change. And that's what I love about it, because I think if we have it on our heart, if it's something that we want to try and experience, then we should go for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just shared a story about that where I talked to a mom, a seasoned homeschool mom. And, that was before my kids they were maybe 3 and 5, so young. And she was like, if you do choose to homeschool, it doesn't have to be forever. It can be 1 year at a time. You evaluate what works for your family, because situations change. We made a huge move 5 years ago. That could have totally changed the trajectory of everything. And it did, because we chose to really homeschool with other reasons too. But it was like, now we can travel whenever we need to, and that would not have been possible if we were doing the traditional route. So there were a lot of other factors, but that's definitely one of them, and what works best for your family individually. So I'm a huge advocate for that, because it really is individually for our children, but individually for our families, and, figuring out what works best in that specific season, because that changes too. So,
yeah. And like you said, every single year we should do that evaluation and say, is this working for us? Or do we want to try something different? It's always there available. We just have to decide to fully step into that. And
Yes.
so I love that nowadays it's graciously acceptable and people are
Yes.
open to it. And we have in Florida, I want to say it's between like 50 and 60% are homeschooling, which is like
Wow.
an amazing number, so
Yes.
it's definitely growing. And it's exciting for these families because I know that they're able to spend so much more time with their children. And that for me was the biggest piece of it, is just having more quality time. So now that my oldest is getting into these like insane math formulas and stuff like that, it's kind of a little bit more challenging, but
Yes, definitely. I could totally get that. I know when we get there, I'm like, hubby, you're the engineer. You can handle
yeah.
this math. For sure. Well, Genesis, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure and an honor to have you. You really just have so many valuable strategies, such wonderful insight, and I just love hearing all that you have to offer. So thank you, and I hope that our listeners felt the same exact way. Would you mind telling them how they can get connected with you so they can follow you as well, listen to your podcast, because there's so much valuable information on there as well?
Absolutely. And so my podcast is Dream Ignite Build, and I do release them every Tuesday at 10 o'clock Eastern. They're typically 7 to 15-minute segments. So if you're in your car, you're on the road, and you just want like a quick pick me up, that's what they're really designed for. And then I do have them on Spotify, on iTunes, YouTube channel, all that good stuff. And then beyond that, I do have women's empowerment events periodically in Florida. We are looking at expanding across the United States and doing different events in different places. So very excited about that expansion. And then also, if you want to reach me directly, you can email me at genesis@dreamignitebuild.com. I'd be more than happy to connect and see if there's any way that I can support you.
Perfect. And we will link all of those resources in the show notes below so you can get connected with Genesis. And just as a reminder, feel free to reach out and check out the Home Education with Ease Facebook group as well. Let us know what are some of the biggest takeaways that you found from this episode. So if you are going through a hard time, if you are, in this transitional season, what does that look like? And how can we support you on that journey? And how can you implement something that Genesis shared today and start implementing that now to start seeing some changes? So we would love to know that in the Facebook group there, Home Education with Ease. Those links are in the show notes below as well. And just looking forward to, continuing this. And Genesis, thank you again so very much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Christine. This was such a great conversation, and I'm just really looking forward to all the things to come. And I'm just encourage everybody listening today to let's all make it the best fall yet.
Yes, I love that so much. All right, friends. Well, remember, see each moment as a chance to learn, create, and have fun. And we will see you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling empowered and ready to take the next steps on your home education journey. Your support means the world to me. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. For even more resources, be sure to join the free Facebook group, Home Education with Ease, and visit eduplaylearning.com to explore our programs and subscription kits. You can find the links and any other links mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. Remember, you're not alone. This community is here to support you every step of the way.